A poor mother with babies tried to pay for a slice of bread, but the billionaire's son's season changes everything. The morning was cloudy in Clearwater. The cold sea wind pushed the grey clouds over the pier, and few people walked the still deserted streets. Ariana West pushed an old stroller along the potholed sidewalks. She was 27, but looked like she had lived twice that. Her face was thin with deep dark circles, and her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her simple clothes were clean, but faded from too much washing. In the stroller, two blonde, light-eyed babies looked at the world with innocent curiosity. Luna and Hazel were 1 year old and identical. Pink cheeks, fine golden hair, bright blue eyes. They were the only beautiful thing in Ariana's life. She stopped in front of a small bakery. The wooden sign read, "Fresh Bread Daily." The warm smell drifting from the open door made Ariana's stomach rumble. She took a deep breath and went inside, pushing the stroller carefully. Inside, the counter was filled with golden loaves, simple cakes and cookies. A middle-aged man wiped the counter with a cloth without looking at her. Ariana reached into her pocket and pulled out some coins. She counted quietly. It wasn't enough. It never was. She approached the counter and placed the coins on top, making a soft metallic sound. "I just wanted a slice of bread, please." Her voice was low, ashamed. She couldn't look the attendant in the eye. The man raised his head, looked at the coins, then looked at her coldly. "We don't sell by the slice, just the whole loaf." Ariana felt her face get hot. "But I only have this much. Please, it's for my daughters." The attendant crossed his arms. "Rules are rules. Do you want the whole loaf or not?" His words fell like stones. Ariana looked at the coins on the counter. It wasn't enough. She knew it wasn't enough. It was then that Luna began to cry, a soft, tired, hungry cry. Hazel quickly joined in, rubbing her eyes with her tiny hands. Ariana felt a tightness in her chest. She knelt down, trying to calm the babies, but their tears only increased. "Shh, shh. Calm down, my loves. Mommy will figure it out." But she didn't know how. Just then, the bakery door opened. The entrance bell rang, and two people walked in. A tall, broad-shouldered man wearing a simple, dark coat. He was in his early 30s, with short, neat hair and stubble. His face was serious, but not harsh. Beside him, a boy of about 6, holding his father's hand. The boy wore a red sweatshirt and clean sneakers. His eyes were curious and lively. The boy saw the babies crying first. He stopped, tugged on his father's hand and whispered, but loud enough for Ariana to hear, "Dad, they're hungry." The man, Richard Hale, looked. He saw the woman kneeling next to the stroller. He saw the coins on the counter. He saw the attendant with his arms crossed, indifferent. He understood everything in a second. Richard approached the counter with firm steps. He looked at the attendant and said in a calm but firm voice, "Put down a whole loaf, and something for the children too." The attendant blinked, surprised. "Yes, sir." Ariana raised her head, confused. She saw the man and the boy. Her face turned red with shame. "No, you don't have to. I can't accept it." Richard looked at her. It wasn't a look of pity. It was a look of respect. Accept it, for them. He pointed to the twins, who were still sobbing softly. Ariana opened her mouth to refuse again, but Luna stretched out her tiny arms toward the warm bread that the attendant was now wrapping. The mother's instinct overcame her pride. She lowered her head. "Thank you." Richard took the package from the counter and handed it to her. Ariana held it with both hands, as if it were gold. Lucas, the boy, approached the stroller and looked at the babies. He smiled. "They're pretty. They look like princesses." Ariana felt her eyes sting. It had been a long time since someone had said something kind about her daughters. Richard paid at the counter and then turned to Ariana. "We're going to have lunch at the pier. Come with us." She widened her eyes. "What? No, I can't." Lucas pulled on his father's sleeve and then looked at Ariana with those innocent eyes that wouldn't accept a no. "Sit with us," he said, smiling. Richard completed. "It's on me today." Ariana stood there holding the bread. looking at that man and that boy who didn't know her, but who were offering her more than food. They were offering dignity. She took a deep breath and nodded her head, unable to speak. They walked together to a simple seaside diner. It wasn't fancy at all. Wooden tables, old chairs, the smell of grilled fish in the air, but it was clean and welcoming. Richard chose a table near the window, from which they could see the grey sea and the seagulls flying. Ariana sat down slowly, still tense. She placed the stroller next to her and picked up the twins, one at a time, settling them in her arms. Lucas sat on the other side of the table, resting his chin on his hands, observing the babies with curiosity. "Do they have names?" he asked. Ariana nodded. "Luna and Hazel." "Luna and Hazel," Lucas repeated, as if he was testing the names. Then he smiled. "I'm Lucas, and this is my dad, Richard." Richard ordered the food, simple sandwiches, hot soup, juice. When everything arrived, he pushed a plate toward Ariana. "Eat." She hesitated, not out of pride this time, but because she wasn't used to eating a full meal. She picked up a spoon of soup slowly, and the warm, salty flavor filled her mouth. It was simple, but for her it was everything. Meanwhile, Lucas started making funny faces at the twins. He pulled his cheeks, crossed his eyes, made silly sounds. Luna started to giggle. Then Hazel did too. Light, childish giggles, full of joy. Ariana stopped eating for a moment just to look. It had been a long time since her daughters had laughed like that. Richard watched everything in silence. He saw the way Ariana carefully wiped the girls' mouths, how she tenderly fixed their hair, how she split every piece of food between them before eating anything herself. He saw a mother who gave everything, even when she had nothing. When they finished, Ariana wiped her hands on the paper napkin and looked at Richard. For the first time, she could look him straight in the eyes. "Thank you, truly, I don't know how to thank you." Richard shook his head. "You don't have to," Lucas laughed. "We're friends now, right? Friends help each other." Ariana smiled for the first time that day, a small, tired but real smile. "Thank you. I'm Ariana." Richard held out his hand. "Richard." "And you've already met, Lucas." She shook his hand. It was firm, warm, secure. In that moment, something shifted. It wasn't love. It wasn't passion. It was something simpler and deeper, human connection. A man who saw someone in need and helped. A boy who saw suffering and wanted to fix it. A mother who, for the first time in a long time, wasn't alone. And two blonde and light-eyed babies who laughed, finally, after so much crying. The cloudy morning in Clearwater was still cold, but inside that simple diner, something warm had begun to grow. Ariana pushed the stroller back down the street toward home. The warm bread was still wrapped in paper inside the bag hanging from the handlebar. Luna and Hazel were napping, finally quiet after eating a little at the diner. The building where she lived was 20 minutes from the pier. It was an old apartment block with peeling paint and cracked windows. The front door creaked when she entered, and the smell of mold hit her nose right away. She climbed the 2 flights of stairs holding the stroller in front of her, pulling with all her might. There was no elevator. There never had been. When she reached the apartment door, she put the key in the old lock and pushed it open. The place was small, very small. The living room and kitchen were all one. An old table with 2 wobbly chairs, a worn-out sofa with torn arms. The wooden floor was stained and scratched. The walls had dark mold stains climbing up the corners, especially near the window. The refrigerator was in a corner of the kitchen, old and noisy. Ariana knew that inside there was only a little milk, half an onion, and a tub of margarine that was almost empty. She closed the door and slowly let out a breath. Luna woke up first and started to stir in the stroller. Hazel soon opened her blue eyes too. Ariana picked them up one at a time and placed them on the thin rug that covered part of the living room floor. She opened the bag, took out the bread and tore off a small piece for each one. The twins grabbed the pieces with their little hands and started eating, making happy little sounds. Then Luna grabbed the paper wrapping from the bread. She crumpled it. It made noise. Hazel looked on, interested, and grabbed the other end. The two started playing, giggling, pulling the paper back and forth as if it were the best toy in the world. Ariana sat on the floor next to them and watched. Those light giggles filled the silent apartment. She remembered the boy making funny faces. She remembered the man paying without thinking twice. She remembered the gentle way he spoke to her, without judgment, without pity. They didn't have to, but they helped anyway. She felt a tightness in her chest, but this time it wasn't sadness. It was something warm, gratitude mixed with hope. Maybe there were still good people in the world. The alarm clock rang at 5 in the morning. Ariana opened her eyes slowly, her body aching. She had slept badly, as always. The thin mattress didn't help. She got out of the narrow bed and went to the small room where the twins slept. It was more of a closet than a real bedroom. 2 old cribs, donated by a church, were pushed against the wall. Luna and Hazel were still sleeping, wrapped in thin blankets. Ariana changed both their diapers carefully so as not to wake them up too early. She took the clean clothes she had washed the night before and slowly dressed each one. In the kitchen, she boiled some water, mixed it with powdered milk, and prepared 2 bottles. There wasn't much powdered milk. It would have to last until the end of the week. She sat on the sofa, gave a bottle to Luna first, then to Hazel. They both drank quietly, still half asleep. At 6:30, she grabbed her old bag, put the twins in the stroller, and left. The upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Clara, was a widow in her 60s who looked after the girls during the day. Ariana paid what she could, but she knew it wasn't enough. Mrs. Clara accepted out of kindness. She knocked on the door. Mrs. Clara opened it, already in an apron, looking sleepy. "Good morning, dear." "Good morning, Mrs. Clara." Ariana handed over the bag with the diapers and bottles. "Thank you again. Stop being silly." The old woman picked up Hazel. "Go to work now, girl." Ariana kissed each twin's forehead. Her heart clenched, as always. "Mummy will be back soon, okay? Be good girls." Luna looked up at her with those enormous clear eyes, not understanding. Ariana felt like crying, but she swallowed it down. She ran out. The Harbour Spoon was on the pier, near where she had met Richard and Lucas the day before. It was a medium-sized restaurant, always busy at lunch and dinner. Ariana entered through the back door, changed in the tiny staff restroom, and put on her uniform, old black pants and a white t-shirt with the restaurant logo. The manager, Mr. Coleman, was already in the kitchen. He was a short, stout man with a thin mustache and an ever-irritated look. When he saw Ariana, he grunted. "Finally. I thought you were going to be late again." She hadn't been late once all week, but she didn't answer. She knew it was useless. "The kitchen floor is filthy. Start there." Ariana picked up the bucket, filled it with water and detergent, and knelt on the floor. The water was icy. She began to scrub with the brush, pressing hard on the grease stains between the tiles. Her back already hurt. Her knees hurt, but she didn't stop. After the kitchen, she cleaned the main dining floor. She scrubbed the tables. She washed the restrooms, which were always dirty. She carried heavy buckets from one side to the other. She took out the trash. She wiped the windows. Mr. Coleman passed by occasionally just to complain. "Faster, Ariana. This isn't a charity house. If you can't handle it, there are 10 others who want your spot." She gritted her teeth and continued. During lunch, the rush increased. Ariana worked non-stop. She cleared tables as soon as customers left, collected plates, swept the floor. She didn't have time to eat. She drank water from the dispenser when no one was looking. At 3 in the afternoon, when the rush died down, she finally sat on a plastic stool in the storage room, just for 5 minutes. Her hands were rough. Her fingers hurt from all the scrubbing. The smell of cleaning products clung to her, but she couldn't stop. She needed this job. She needed the money. At 7 in the evening, Ariana finally left the Harbour Spoon. She stopped by Mrs. Clara's house, picked up the already sleeping twins, thanked her quietly, and returned to the apartment. She placed them both in their cribs, kissed each blonde head, and went to the kitchen. She opened the old drawer where she kept her money. She took out the few crumpled bills and loose coins. She put everything on the table and started counting. Rent, due in 5 days. Diapers, she needed to buy more. Food, the bread was gone. The powdered milk was almost finished. She counted, recounted, counted again. It didn't add up. Ariana rested her head in her hands and took a deep breath. She couldn't cry. Crying didn't pay bills. She looked at the small room where the twins were sleeping. Luna was lying on her back, one arm stretched out. Hazel had her cheek pressed against the tiny mattress, her blonde hair spread out. They were so small, so innocent. They didn't deserve this. Ariana stood up, went to the small room, and stood in the doorway just watching. She whispered softly like a promise, "I promise I'll figure it out for you, even if it breaks me in two." She stayed there for a few more minutes, listening to her daughter's gentle breathing. Then she returned to the kitchen, put the money away, and started washing clothes in the sink, because the building's laundry room had been broken for months. The cold water soaked her bruised hands, but she kept scrubbing. Outside, the night was dark and cold, but inside that small moldy apartment, a mother kept fighting, alone, tired, but not giving up. 3 days had passed since the encounter at the bakery. Richard and Lucas walked along the pier on a Saturday afternoon. The sky was less cloudy, and the sea sparkled with sun reflections between the clouds. Lucas skipped among the sidewalk stones, holding his father's hand, talking about his math class that week. And then the teacher said, "I got everything right, Dad, all the little sums." Richard smiled. "Very good, champion." They passed some shops, fresh fish stalls, and an ice cream vendor. Lucas stopped in front of a diner. The sign read Harbour Spoon in faded red letters. He looked through the window and saw the wooden tables, the smell of food coming out of the half-open door. "Dad, let's eat here." Richard looked. It wasn't a fancy place, but it looked honest. Simple food, hard-working people. "All right, let's go." They went inside. The diner was busy. Mixed voices, the clatter of plates, forks tapping, the smell of grilled fish and fried potatoes in the air. Richard was looking for a table when Lucas suddenly stopped, pulling on his father's sleeve. "Dad, look." He pointed to the corner of the dining area. There, kneeling on the floor, scrubbing with a brush, was Ariana. Her hair was pulled back in a sweaty bun. Her white uniform was stained with water and soap. A bucket next to her filled with dirty water. She was scrubbing hard, her head down, focused. That's when a loud voice cut through the noise of the diner. "Ariana, that floor is still filthy. Do you want to lose your job?" A short, stout man with a thin mustache yelled from across the room. His arms were crossed and his face was red with irritation. Some customers looked over. Ariana looked up for a second, embarrassed, and it was in that moment that she saw Richard, Lucas. Her eyes widened, her face instantly turned red. She quickly lowered her head, returning to scrubbing the floor as if she wanted to disappear. Lucas didn't understand her shame. He only saw the woman they had helped. He smiled widely and waved. "Hi, it's the lady with the babies." His voice was loud, clear, without any judgment. Ariana looked again, this time at Lucas. He was smiling, sincere, happy to see her. She tried to smile back, but the shame weighed her down. She gave a timid wave with her wet hand and returned to work. Richard didn't take his eyes off the manager. He saw the way the man looked at Ariana, how he spoke loudly on purpose, how he treated her as if she were invisible. This bothered him, deeply. He and Lucas sat down at a table near the window. A waiter came to take their order, but Richard was barely paying attention. His eyes followed Ariana working. She got up, picked up the heavy bucket with both hands, and walked toward the storage room. She passed near their table. Richard looked her straight in the eyes. "Hi." His voice was soft. It held no pity. It held respect. Ariana stopped for a second. She looked at him. Her chest tightened. She whispered, "Hi," and hurried away, carrying the bucket before anyone noticed she had stopped. Lucas tilted his head, thinking, "Dad, does she work here? It seems so. But why did that man yell at her like that?" Richard took a deep breath. "Some people don't know how to treat others with respect, Lucas." The boy was quiet, but he didn't like the answer. Ariana spent the rest of the afternoon hiding. She cleaned quickly, avoided walking near their table, kept her head down. She didn't want Richard to see her like that, kneeling, dirty, being yelled at. She wanted him to keep only the image of her in the other diner, as a mother, as someone who was trying. But now he knew the truth. She was just a cleaner, someone the world stepped on and yelled at. When Richard and Lucas finished eating and left, she felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. At 7 in the evening, the rush finally dropped. Ariana was putting away the last cleaning rags in the storage room when she heard the loud voice, "Ariana, here, now." Mr. Coleman was standing at the kitchen door, his arms crossed. She swallowed hard and walked over to him. "Yes, sir." He looked her up and down, as if measuring her worth, which wasn't much judging by the way he spoke. "I'm going to make one thing very clear to you." He took a step forward. "If you're late for one day, you're out. Understand? One day." Ariana nodded, her heart racing. "I've never been late, sir." "And you won't be." He cut her off. "And don't even think about bringing problems here. Sick child, single mother drama. I don't want to hear it. If you miss a day, you're finished." His words hit like a punch. Ariana felt panic rise in her throat. She knew what that meant. If Luna or Hazel got sick, if she needed to take one of them to the doctor, if Mrs. Clara couldn't look after them for some reason, she would be late. And if she was late, she would lose her job. And if she lost her job, she wouldn't be able to pay rent. She wouldn't be able to buy food. She wouldn't be able to support her daughters. "Do you understand, or do I need to draw you a picture?" Mr. Coleman asked, irritated. "I understand," she whispered. "Good. Now get out of here. Your shift is over." She grabbed her old bag from the staff locker, changed quickly, and left through the back door. Outside, the cold air hit her face. She stopped on the sidewalk, breathing deeply, trying to calm her heart. Her hands were shaking. "If you're late for one day, you're out." She looked up at the darkening sky. Seagulls flew over the pier, crying out. Luna and Hazel were home with Mrs. Clara. They had probably already had dinner. They were probably playing or sleeping. They depended on her. Only her. Ariana started walking, her legs heavy, her mind racing. What if one of them got sick again? What if she had a high fever like last week? What if she needed a doctor? She couldn't miss work, but she also couldn't leave her daughters alone if they were sick. It was an impossible choice, and she knew that, eventually, she would have to make that choice. Fear squeezed her chest like an invisible hand. It wasn't fear of hard work. It wasn't fear of hunger. It was fear of losing her job, losing her home, losing the ability to care for her daughters. She quickened her pace, almost running down the empty streets. When she reached the building, she rushed up the stairs, went into Mrs. Clara's apartment, and picked up the twins. Luna and Hazel were awake, sitting on the rug, playing with old wooden blocks. When they saw their mother, they smiled. Those small, pure, innocent smiles. Ariana knelt down and hugged them both at the same time, holding them tightly. "Mommy's here. Mommy's here." Mrs. Clara watched from the kitchen, concerned. "Are you all right, dear?" Ariana nodded quickly, without letting go of the twins. Yes, I am." But she wasn't. She thanked Mrs. Clara, picked up the girls, and returned to the apartment. She put them both in their cribs, gave them their bottles, and sang softly until they fell asleep. Then she sat on the old sofa, alone in the silence. She looked at the cracked ceiling. "If you're late for one day, you're out." Mr. Coleman's voice echoed in her head. Ariana closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She couldn't give up. She couldn't fail. But she also didn't know how she could hold it all together alone for much longer. The weight was too heavy. And she was tired, very tired. It was 2 in the morning when Ariana woke up to a whimper. She opened her eyes in the dark, her heart already racing. She knew that sound. It was Hazel. She jumped out of bed and ran to the small room. The faint light from the street lamp entered through the cracked window, illuminating the cribs. Hazel was lying on her side, her tiny face red, her blonde hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. She whimpered softly, restless, her eyes tightly closed. Ariana touched her forehead. She was hot, very hot. "No, no, no, no." She picked the girl up. Hazel whined, her small body trembling. Luna woke up with the noise and started to cry too, irritated, tired. Ariana felt panic rise in her throat. She put Hazel down on her bed for a second, picked up Luna, and took both of them to the kitchen. She turned on the light and ran to the cupboard where she kept the medicine. She had an old thermometer. She put it under Hazel's arm and waited, counting the seconds. When she looked, the number made her stomach turn. 102.5 degrees Fahrenheit, 39.2 circ ext. Oh my God. She grabbed a clean towel, soaked it in cold water, and started making compresses on Hazel's forehead and neck. The girl whined, trying to push the towel away. Luna was crying in the stroller, hungry, sleepy, confused. Ariana quickly prepared a bottle and gave it to Luna, who drank in sobs. Then she picked up the fever medicine bottle, measured the small dose, and tried to give it to Hazel. The girl spat half of it out, crying, "Please, my love, please, take this." She tried again. This time, Hazel swallowed a little more. The hours passed slowly. Ariana changed the compresses several times. She took her temperature again. 102.0 degrees Fahrenheit, 38.9 circ extil. It was going down, but still high. Luna finally fell asleep in the stroller, exhausted. Hazel remained restless, whimpering, sweaty. Ariana sat on the sofa, holding the girl in her arms, stroking her blonde hair, humming softly. She didn't sleep. She stayed there all night, keeping watch, praying for the fever to drop more. When the sun started to rise, Ariana looked at the clock on the wall. 6:15 in the morning. She needed to be at the Harbor Spoon by 7. Her heart sank. She touched Hazel's forehead again, still warm but a little better. The girl had finally fallen asleep, exhausted. Ariana stood up slowly, carefully placed Hazel in her crib, and covered her with a thin blanket. She looked at Luna, sleeping with her mouth open in the stroller. She looked at the clock, 6:20. She didn't have time. She wouldn't be able to leave the girls with Mrs. Clara and get to work on time. And then she remembered Mr. Coleman's voice. "If you're late for one day, you're out." Panic took over. She couldn't lose her job, not now. Not with the twins sick, not with the rent due. She made a quick, desperate decision. She was going to take the girls with her. She would get there, explain, apologize, show them that Hazel was sick. Maybe Mr. Coleman would understand. Maybe he had some humanity. She quickly dressed the twins. She picked up Luna, still sleeping, and put her in the stroller. She picked up Hazel, wrapped in a blanket. She ran out of the house. The streets were empty. The cold sea wind hit her face as she pushed the stroller with one hand and held Hazel with the other. Hazel whimpered, her tiny head resting on Ariana's shoulder. Luna woke up halfway and started to cry too, confused, cold. Ariana was almost running. Her legs ached. Her arms were shaking with tiredness. When she arrived at the Harbor Spoon, it was 7:10. 10 minutes late. She stopped in front of the diner, breathless, sweaty, trembling, and then she saw him. Mr. Coleman was standing at the door, arms crossed, looking at her with a stern expression. Ariana felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. She approached, trying to speak, but her voice came out weak. "Mr. Coleman, I'm so sorry. My daughter's got sick and—" He raised his hand, cutting her off. "You don't need to come in." Ariana blinked, not understanding. "What?" "You're fired." The words fell like stones. No, please." She took a step forward, tears already streaming down. "They had a fever all night. I couldn't sleep. I tried to get here on time. Mr. Coleman shook his head. "I warned you. I said if you were late for one day, you were out and you were late." "But they were sick," Ariana cried, desperate. "Look at them." She turned Hazel around, showing the girl's red, sweaty face. Luna was crying in the stroller. Mr. Coleman didn't even look. "It's not my problem. You knew the rules. Please, I need this job. I have nothing else." He shrugged. "You should have thought about that before being late." And then he walked into the diner and closed the door. Ariana stood there, holding Hazel, looking at the closed door. The world spun. She had just lost everything. Ariana didn't know how long she stood there, paralyzed. Then her legs gave way. She sat down on the sidewalk, leaned her back against the building wall next door, and hugged Hazel tightly, and she cried. She cried desperately, unable to stop. Sobs shook her whole body. Tears fell onto Hazel's blonde hair. Luna was crying in the stroller too, sensing her mother's despair. Ariana pressed them both to her chest, rocking, trying to breathe but unable to. I don't know what to do, I don't know. She had no money. She had no job. She had no food. The rent was due in 2 days. They would take her apartment away. They would put all 3 of them on the street, and the twins were sick. The despair was so great that she could barely think. That's when she heard the voice, "Dad, it's Ariana. The babies are sick." She lifted her head, her face wet with tears, and she saw them, Lucas running toward her, his eyes wide with concern. Richard came right behind him, his face serious. They stopped in front of her. Richard quickly knelt down, touched Hazel's forehead, and felt the strong heat. "She has a high fever." He looked at Ariana. "What happened?" Ariana could barely speak between sobs. I lost my job. They got sick. I was late. He fired me. I don't know what to do." Lucas took her hand, squeezing it. "Don't cry. We'll help." Richard was already standing up. "Get in the car now, we're going to the hospital." Ariana shook her head, confused. I don't have money for... Now." His voice was firm but gentle. "We'll take care of them first." He picked up the stroller, started pushing it toward the car parked nearby. Lucas helped Ariana stand up, holding her arm. She let herself be guided, lacking the strength to resist. Richard's car was simple but clean and spacious. He put the stroller in the trunk, helped Ariana sit in the back seat with Hazel in her lap. Lucas got in on the other side and held Ariana's hand. "It's going to be okay," he whispered. Richard drove fast but carefully to the nearest hospital. Luna fell asleep halfway, too tired. Hazel remained restless. When they arrived, Richard picked up Hazel and went inside first. Ariana and Lucas came right behind, pushing Luna in the stroller. The reception area was empty. Richard went straight to the counter. "I need a doctor. The baby has a high fever." The attendant looked, saw Hazel's red face, and quickly called a nurse. In 15 minutes, and they were in an examination room. The doctor, a man in his 50s, calmly examined Hazel. He took her temperature, checked her throat, listened to her chest. Viral infection. He said finally, "It's serious, but treatable. She'll need rest, lots of fluids, and this medication here." He wrote the prescription. "If the fever doesn't break in 2 days, come back." Ariana held Luna in her lap, trying to process everything. She looked at Richard. I can't afford this." Richard took the prescription from the doctor's hand. "I'll take care of it." She started crying again, but this time it was relief mixed with shame. "I lost my job. I don't know how I'll pay for anything. I don't know what to do." Richard knelt down in front of her, looking her straight in the eyes. "First, we're going to take care of them. Then we'll worry about the rest." His voice was calm, firm, reassuring. Ariana nodded, unable to speak. Lucas was beside her, making faces at Luna, trying to make her smile. The girl stopped crying for a second, looking at him curiously. The next day, Ariana was home, looking after the twins. Hazel was better. The fever had dropped after the medication Richard had bought. Luna was calmer too. There was a knock on the door. Ariana opened it and saw Richard and Lucas standing there, holding bags. "We brought some things," Richard said. They walked in. Ariana stood still, watching as they placed the bags on the kitchen table. Food, diapers, more medicine, powdered milk, cookies for the twins, rice, pasta, fruit. "You don't have to," she began, but her voice failed. Richard looked around the apartment. He saw the walls with mold climbing up the corners, the old, stained floor, the noisy, old refrigerator, the makeshift cribs in the small room, the few old clothes hanging on a clothesline inside. Lucas was quiet. He looked at the twins in their cribs, then looked at his father. Richard felt something tighten in his chest. It wasn't pity. It was responsibility. Care. Something he couldn't explain, but felt strongly. Lucas approached the cribs. Hazel was awake, looking at the ceiling with those clear blue eyes. He carefully adjusted her blanket, speaking softly. "It's going to be okay." Ariana watched from the doorway, her face red with shame. It's all I could afford. Her voice was weak. Now I don't even know what's going to happen. Richard turned to her. You won't go through this alone. Ariana looked at him, not understanding. How? We're going to help, Lucas said, smiling. Richard nodded. We'll find a solution. You're not alone. Ariana raised her hand to her mouth, trying to hold back the tears, but she couldn't. She cried right there, in the doorway of the small room, while Richard and Lucas stood there, present, firm. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't carrying everything alone. There was someone by her side, and that, in that moment, was everything. 3 days had passed since Richard and Lucas's visit to the apartment. Hazel was fully recovered. The fever was gone, and she was back to playing and smiling. Luna was doing well too, happy with the food Richard had brought. Ariana spent her days at home, caring for the girls, but the fear wouldn't leave her head. No job, no money coming in. The rent overdue. She knew it was only a matter of time. It was a Thursday morning when there was a knock at the door. 3 strong, dry knocks. Ariana was feeding the twins breakfast. She wiped her hands on the old dishcloth and went to the door. She opened it. On the other side was Mr. Gomes, the building's landlord, a tall, thin man in his 60s, with a leather briefcase under his arm and a tired expression on his face. Good morning, Ariana. Good morning, Mr. Gomes. He didn't waste time. I came to bring you this. He took a paper out of his briefcase and handed it to her. Ariana took it with shaking hands. She read the first words in large black letters at the top of the paper, eviction notice. The rest of the text was full of legal terms, but she understood enough. Lack of payment, 30 days to vacate, legal action if necessary. The world spun. She looked up at Mr. Gomes, her voice weak. Mr. Gomes, I know I'm late, but I lost my job and... He raised his hand, tired. I know, Ariana. I know your situation, but I can't go without being paid. I have bills too. This building doesn't pay for itself. I'll get the money. I swear, just give me a little more time. I've already given you time, 3 months behind. I waited as long as I could. She looked at the paper again, the letters blurring with tears. I have nowhere to go with them. Mr. Gomez sighed. He wasn't a bad man, but there was nothing he could do. I'm sorry, but you have 30 days. Try to find a place. He turned and started walking down the stairs. Ariana stood still in the doorway, holding the paper, listening to his footsteps echoing down the stairs until they faded. She closed the door slowly. She looked at the paper again. No job, no salary, no home. Her legs gave way. She sat down on the floor right there with her back to the door, and the paper fell beside her. The twins were in the kitchen, Luna tapping her small spoon on the stroller tray, Hazel giggling at it. Ariana hugged her knees and cried. She cried softly at first, trying not to scare the girls, but the despair was too great. How was she going to get out of there? Where was she going to take 2 one-year-old babies? She had no family. She had no friends who could help. She had no money to rent another place. The street. She was going to end up on the street with her daughters. She covered her face with her hands and let the sobs escape. Luna stopped tapping the spoon. She sensed something was wrong. She started to whimper. Hazel looked at her mother on the floor and her face tightened too. Both started crying. Ariana quickly stood up, wiped her face with the back of her hand and went to them. No, Mommy's okay. Mommy's okay. She picked up both of them, one in each arm, and sat on the old sofa, hugging the girls to her chest. They calmed down, little by little, feeling their mother's warmth. Ariana looked at the cracked ceiling, the mold stains, that miserable apartment that was still the only home she had. And now she was going to lose even that. An hour later, there was another knock at the door. Ariana had just put the twins down for a nap. She wiped her face once more, trying to hide the signs of crying, and went to open it. Richard and Lucas. "Aye," Richard said. "We came to see how you're doing. Is Hazel better?" Lucas excitedly walked in, going straight to the small room to look at the babies. Ariana tried to smile, but couldn't. She's fine. Richard noticed immediately. He knew that look. He had seen it many times in people who were at their limit. What happened? She didn't answer. She went to the small table, picked up the folded paper, and handed it to him. Richard opened it and read in silence. Eviction notice. 30 days. He took a deep breath and looked at her. When did you receive this? This morning. Her voice was cracked. I have nowhere to go with them, Richard. I have no one. I have no money. They're going to kick me out and I don't know what to do. She started crying again, covering her face with her hands. Lucas came out of the small room, saw the baby's mother crying, and immediately became serious. Dad, what is it? Richard slowly folded the paper, put it in his pocket, and looked at Ariana. You're coming with me. Ariana lifted her head, confused. What? You're coming to live with me? Now you won't be on the street. She blinked, not believing what she was hearing. Richard, I can't do that. Yes, you can. He spoke firmly but gently. My house has space. There's a guest room. You'll stay there until you get back on your feet. But I can't afford to pay. I'm not asking for payment. I'm offering help. Lucas jumped up, excited. Yes, come live with us. I'll help with the babies. I can play with them every day. Ariana looked at the boy, then at Richard, then at the floor. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Richard said. Get your things, today. She shook her head, tears still falling. But now they were different. It was relief. It was shock. It was gratitude so deep it hurt. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Richard nodded. Let's go. I'll help you pack. There wasn't much to pack. Ariana gathered the twins, few clothes, some diapers, the old blankets, the few toys they had. She put everything in an old fabric suitcase that was already torn at the sides. Richard disassembled the makeshift cribs and put them in the car. Lucas held the girls' stroller, while Ariana picked up Luna and Hazel. She looked at the apartment one last time, that miserable, moldy, broken place. But it had been hers. It had been where she had raised her daughters alone until now. She closed the door and didn't look back. Richard's car left the poor neighborhood near the pier and headed for a different area of the city. The streets became cleaner. The houses became bigger. There were trees on the sidewalks, well-maintained gardens, new cars parked. Ariana looked out the window, hugging the twins, still processing everything. Is this really happening? Richard turned onto a quiet street and stopped in front of a house. It wasn't a mansion, but it was nice. 2 stories, painted white with grey accents, a small garden in the front with flowers. The garage was next to it. He turned off the car. We're here. Lucas opened his door and jumped out. Come on, Ariana. Come see. Richard helped her out of the car, picked up the stroller and the suitcase. He opened the front door with his key. Ariana walked in slowly, still holding the twins. The house was normal, simple, but comfortable. The living room had a large sofa, a TV, a bookcase with books. The smell of cleanliness. Everything organized, but not overly done. There was no luxury. There was no gold. There was nothing ostentatious about wealth. But it was clean. It was safe. It was warm. Richard walked through the living room and went upstairs. Ariana followed him, with Lucas excitedly leading the way. On the second floor, he opened a door in the hallway. This is the guest room. Ariana walked in and stopped. The room was small but cozy. A single bed with clean sheets and a thick folded blanket. 2 assembled cribs to the side, with new mattresses and soft blankets. A simple wooden dresser against the wall. A window with a light curtain that let the sunlight in. Ariana felt her throat tighten. You put the cribs together? Richard placed the suitcase on the floor. I bought them yesterday. I thought you might need them. She looked at him, her eyes watering again. How did you know that? I didn't, but I thought it was better to be prepared. Lucas ran into the room. This is my favorite room now. It has the babies. He went straight to the cribs, touched the rails, looked at the blankets. Look, Ariana, they're brand new. And they have little bears drawn here, see? Ariana slowly approached, still holding the girls. She placed Luna in one crib, then Hazel in the other. The two looked around, curious. Hazel touched the soft blanket and let out a giggle. Ariana covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to cry again. I don't know how to thank you. Richard stood in the doorway, arms crossed, but his gaze was gentle. You don't need to thank me. Just make yourselves at home. This is your house now. Lucas jumped. Yes, you live here now. We're like a family. Ariana laughed through her tears. Thank you, Lucas. She turned to Richard. Thank you truly. I'll never forget this. Richard nodded. I'll let you settle in if you need anything. I'm downstairs. He left, closing the door slowly. Lucas stayed for a little longer, playing with the twins, making funny faces. They giggled, clapping their hands. Ariana sat on the bed. It was firm, comfortable, clean. She looked around. Walls without mold, window without a crack, real cribs, not makeshift ones, clean, warm blankets. She lay down on the bed for a second just to feel it. The mattress was soft. It didn't hurt her back. She closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt something she had forgotten what it was like. Safety. In the first few hours, Ariana was quiet, afraid to make noise, to bother, to take up too much space. She carefully put the twins' few clothes away in the dresser, as if they might break. She neatly put the old toys in a corner. Lucas stayed with her the whole time, helping. You can just leave things there. My dad doesn't mind. I know, but I don't want to make a mess. It's not a mess. It's just living. She smiled. Later, Richard called everyone down for dinner. They sat at the kitchen table. Richard had prepared something simple. Pasta with sauce, salad, bread. Ariana ate slowly, still a little tense. Luna and Hazel were in the double stroller next to the table, eating crackers. Lucas talked about school, about his friends, making silly jokes that made the twins giggle. Richard watched in silence, drinking water. And then it happened. Hazel let out a loud, happy giggle, clapping her hands in the stroller. Lucas laughed too and made a funny face. Hazel laughed louder. Luna started laughing along, not even knowing why. The kitchen, which had been silent, filled with the sounds of babies giggling. Richard looked around. The house was different. Before, it was just him and Lucas. Silence most of the time. Quick dinners. Predictable routine. Now there was noise. There was life. There was laughter. He looked at Ariana, who was smiling at her daughters. He looked at Lucas, who was truly happy, and he felt something strange in his chest. It wasn't annoyance. It was peace, as if the house was finally complete. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Ariana stayed awake in the guest room. Luna and Hazel slept in their cribs, breathing softly. She slowly got up, went to the window, and looked outside. The street was quiet. The light from the street lamps illuminated the gardens. Everything was peaceful. She thought about how she had been just a week ago, alone, desperate, with no way out. And now she had a roof over her head, food, security, someone who cared. She didn't know how long it would last. She didn't know how she would repay them. But in that moment, she only felt gratitude. She looked at her daughters sleeping. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise." And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed it. Downstairs, in the living room, Richard was still awake, sitting on the sofa, staring at the wall. He had made a big decision that day, but somehow he felt it was the right decision. The house was alive again, and that was good. The first week in Richard's house passed quickly. In the beginning, Ariana still walked on tiptoes, trying not to make noise, not to take up too much space. But slowly, the tension left her. The twins adapted quickly. They slept well in the new cribs. They ate better. They laughed more. And Lucas. Lucas was everywhere. It was a Saturday morning when everything started to feel different. Ariana was in the guest room, getting the twins ready after they woke up. Luna was sitting on the rug, in her diaper, waiting to be dressed. Hazel was in her lap, still sleepy. There was a knock on the door. "Can I come in?" Lucas's voice. "How you can." He slowly opened the door and walked in, still in his pajamas, his hair messy from sleep. "Good morning." "Good morning, Lucas." He sat on the floor near Luna, who immediately smiled at him. "Are you going to dress them?" "I am. Can I help?" Ariana looked at him, surprised. "You want to help?" "I do. I've never dressed a baby. But I'm a fast learner," she smiled. "All right, come here." Lucas approached, excited. Ariana took a small outfit from the dresser and handed it to him. "Let's start with the socks. It's easier." She put Hazel in the crib and picked up Luna. "Look, you hold the sock like this and slowly slide it onto her little foot. Don't pull too hard or it will hurt her." Lucas took the small pink sock, almost the size of his hand, and tried to put it on Luna's foot. The sock turned the wrong way. "Oops," Ariana laughed. "Calm down. Turn it around first. That's it. Now slide it on." Lucas tried again, his tongue sticking out in concentration. This time he succeeded. The sock went on Luna's chubby foot perfectly. He raised his arms, celebrating. "I did it." "You did. Now for the other one." They spent the next few minutes like that. Lucas putting on socks, Ariana helping with the clothes, the twins giggling when he got tangled up. Hazel watched from the crib, clapping her hands. When they finished, Lucas looked at the twins proudly. "They look pretty." "They do. You're a good helper." He smiled widely, happy. In the afternoon, the sun streamed through the living room window, illuminating the old rug where Lucas was lying on his stomach. Luna and Hazel were sitting near him, surrounded by colorful wooden blocks. Lucas slowly stacked the blocks, building a tower. "Look, girls, I'm going to make a giant tower." The twins watched with wide eyes. Lucas put another block on, then another. The tower became tall, wobbly. Now for the last one. He placed the red block on top. Luna reached out her tiny hand and knocked it all down. The blocks scattered across the floor with a clatter. Lucas feigned surprise. "Ah, the tower fell. Who was it?" Luna clapped her hands, giggling. Hazel laughed too, not really understanding but finding it funny. Ariana was sitting on the sofa, folding the girls' clean clothes. She stopped to watch. Lucas started stacking again. "I'm making another one. Stronger this time." But as soon as he finished, Hazel knocked it down. Lucas fell backward onto the rug, dramatically. "I don't believe it. Again." The twins were laughing loudly now, finding it the funniest thing in the world. Ariana laughed too, covering her mouth. Just then Richard walked through the living room door, coming from the kitchen. He stopped in the hallway, watching. Lucas on the floor, clowning around. The babies laughing, Ariana on the sofa, genuinely smiling for the first time since he met her. It looked like a family scene, a real family. He stood there for only a few seconds, but he kept that image. Then he continued walking quietly without interrupting. That night, after dinner, Lucas was sitting at the kitchen table with his math notebook open in front of him. He scowled, biting the tip of his pencil. "Huh, I hate division." Ariana was washing dishes at the sink. She looked back. "Are you having trouble?" "I am. I don't understand anything." She dried her hands on the cloth and went to the table. Can I help?" Lucas looked up at her, hopeful. "Can you?" "I can. Let me see." She sat down next to him and looked at the notebook. Simple division problems. "See this one? 12 divided by 3. Do you know how many times 3 goes into 12? Lucas frowned. 4. "That's right. 4 times. So the answer is 4. "Oh, now it makes sense." They spent the next half hour like that. Ariana explaining patiently, Lucas trying, getting it wrong, trying again. When they finished, he closed the notebook, excited. "Thank you. You explain it better than the teacher." Ariana smiled. "You're welcome." Richard was in the living room, overhearing without meaning to. He didn't say anything, but he felt something strange. Gratitude. Not just because she was helping his son, but because she was there. For being a part of it. Dinners became a routine. Every night, the 4 of them sat at the table. "Well, The twins were in the stroller next to them, but they were there, present. Richard cooked. Nothing too elaborate. Pasta, rice, roast chicken, simple salads. But it was real food, made with care. Lucas told stories about school. He complained about homework. He made silly jokes. Ariana listened, laughed, participated. Sometimes she told stories too. Simple things, memories from when she was a child. The twins ate crackers, played with plastic spoons, giggled when Lucas made funny noises, and Richard watched. He didn't talk much. He had never been a man of many words, but he liked to listen. He liked that full table, that noise, that life. The house was no longer silent, and he realized he preferred it that way. One night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Ariana stayed awake in the guest room. Luna and Hazel slept in their cribs, hugging the teddy bears Lucas had given them. Ariana slowly got up and went to the cribs. She looked at her daughters, their blonde hair shining in the faint light coming through the window, their cheeks rosy, healthy, their breathing quiet, deep. They were okay. They weren't hungry. They weren't cold. They weren't sick. They were safe. Ariana touched the rail of Hazel's crib, feeling the smooth, firm wood. Real cribs, not makeshift crates. Real, warm blankets, not old rags. A clean room, no mold, no dampness. Food in the refrigerator, always. And more than that, there was Lucas, who played with them every day, who made them laugh, who learned to put socks on tiny feet. There was Richard, who didn't talk much, but who was always there, present, firm, safe. Ariana sat on the bed, looking at her daughters. She whispered softly, "So no one would hear. I'll never be able to repay what they did for us." Her voice was choked. "Never?" She lay down on the bed, looking at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was part of something. It wasn't just her and the twins against the world. There were other people there, people who cared. It wasn't out of obligation, it wasn't out of pity, it was care, it was true kindness, it was family. Not in the traditional sense, not by blood or marriage, but in the sense that they were together, that they supported each other, that they cared. A small family that was formed without anyone noticing. And that night, for the first time since the twins were born, Ariana slept in peace, without fear of tomorrow, without fear of losing everything. Because in that moment, she had something that couldn't be taken away. She had a home. 2 weeks had passed since Ariana and the twins moved into Richard's house. The routine was becoming natural. Ariana helped with the house, looked after the girls, helped Lucas with his homework. Richard worked during the day and came back to have dinner with everyone. But there was something that wouldn't leave his mind. Ariana's firing, the way Mr. Coleman had shut the door in her face, the way he hadn't even looked at the sick babies, the way he had thrown her out as if she were nothing. That bothered Richard. It didn't make sense. Ariana was dedicated, hardworking, punctual. She had been late one day because of a medical emergency, one day, and she had been fired immediately with no chance to explain. That wasn't normal. Richard made a decision. It was a Thursday afternoon when he walked into the Harbour Spoon. The diner was busy, as always during lunchtime. The smell of grilled fish in the air, mixed voices, waiters rushing back and forth. Richard went straight to the counter and asked the waitress, "Who owns this place?" She blinked, surprised. "Martha and James Harper." "Why?" "I need to speak with them. It's important." "They're in the office out back. Let me call them." A few minutes later, a middle-aged couple appeared. Martha was a woman in her 50s, grey hair pulled back in a bun, an apron tied around her waist. James was older, bald, with thick-rimmed glasses and a round belly. "Good afternoon," Martha said, polite, but tired. "The waitress said you wanted to speak with us." "I do." Richard looked at the two of them. "My name is Richard Hale. I want to understand why Ariana West was fired like that." The couple exchanged a look. Martha sighed deeply. "Come into the office. We'll talk there." The office was small, cramped, filled with piles of papers on the desks and old files on the shelves. James closed the door and gestured to a chair for Richard. "Sit down. This might take a while." Richard sat down. Martha leaned against the desk, her arms crossed. "You know Ariana?" "I do. She's living with me and my son now." James raised his eyebrows. "Really? Really? And I want to know why she was fired. She told me she was late one day because her daughters were sick." "One day? And your manager threw her out on the street?" Martha shook her head, looking embarrassed. "It was an injustice, we know." Richard frowned. "What do you mean?" James took off his glasses, wiped the lenses with the corner of his shirt, and put them back on. "Mr. Coleman, he was our manager for 3 years. We trusted him. We let him handle the hiring, the firing, the shifts. Everything," Martha completed. "But we found out 2 weeks ago that he was embezzling money." Richard leaned forward. "Embezzling? A lot of money." James said. "He manipulated the till records, invented expenses that didn't exist, took money from the profits and covered the shortfalls by inventing warnings against employees." "He blamed the employees?" Richard asked, his voice hardening. "Exactly." Martha picked up a folder from a pile and opened it. "Look at this." She showed a list of names with warnings next to them. Ariana West was there several times. Unjustified tardiness, poorly done work, lack of commitment. Richard read everything, his jaw clenched. "None of this is true." "We know," James said. "When we started investigating, we realized that most of the warnings were false. He invented them to justify the firings and the deductions he made from the payroll. Then he pocketed the difference." Martha shook her head, looking genuinely sad. "Ariana was one of his victims. She never did anything wrong. Quite the opposite. She was one of the most dedicated employees we had. She arrived early, worked hard, never complained. But he fired her because of one late arrival," Richard said, his anger starting to rise. "Because he needed a scapegoat," James explained. "He was being pressured by the previous owners before we took over the place. He needed to show he was maintaining order. So he chose vulnerable employees who couldn't defend themselves and invented reasons to fire them. And Ariana," Martha continued, her voice failing slightly, "she was perfect for that. Single mother, no support, no resources. She wouldn't sue. She wouldn't fight. She would accept it and leave quietly." Richard clenched his fists. "Where is he now?" "He was fired," James said. "He's being investigated by the police. He might even be arrested, depending on what they find." Martha closed the folder. "We are very sorry for what happened to her. Truly. If we had known sooner." Richard took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "Do you want to do something to fix this?" The two looked at each other again. "We do," Martha said. "We want Ariana back." "Not as a cleaner," James added. "As a manager." Richard blinked. "Manager. She held this place together on her own," Martha explained. "While Coleman was embezzling money and causing trouble, Ariana was working. She knows the restaurant better than anyone. She deserves it." James nodded. "If she accepts, we'll offer a fair salary, decent hours, and a chance to show what she can really do." Richard stood up. "I'll talk to her." That night, after dinner, Richard asked Ariana to come into the living room. Lucas stayed in his room playing with the twins, making funny noises that made them giggle. Ariana sat on the sofa, nervous. "Has something happened?" Richard sat in the armchair opposite her. "I went to the Harbour Spoon today." Her eyes widened. "What? Why?" "Because I needed to understand what happened to you." "Richard, let me talk." He leaned forward. "John, I spoke with the owners. Martha and James Harper, they told me everything." Ariana remained quiet, waiting. "Mr. Coleman was embezzling money from the restaurant. He invented warnings against employees to justify firings and deductions from the payroll. Then he pocketed the difference." Ariana covered her mouth with her hand. "What?" "He used your name. He invented false warnings against you. He manipulated the records. The firing had nothing to do with you being late. He just needed a scapegoat." Tears began to stream down her face. I didn't know." You were never incompetent, Richard continued, his voice firm. You were always good at what you did. You were a victim of a corrupt man. And now he's been fired. He's being investigated. Ariana sobbed, covering her face with her hands. I thought it was my fault. That I wasn't good enough. No, Richard said. You were always good enough. He waited for her to take a deep breath. And there's more. The owners want you back. She lifted her head, her eyes red. As a cleaner, as a manager. Ariana blinked, confused. What? Manager. They said you held that place together on your own, that you know the restaurant better than anyone. They want to give you a real chance. Fair salary, decent hours. She shook her head, disbelieving. I don't know what to say. Just then, Lucas appeared at the door, holding Hazel. He saw Ariana crying and went to her, placing his hand on her shoulder. Don't cry, you're good. I always knew you were good. Ariana looked at the boy, at his sincere face, at his eyes full of affection, and she cried more, but this time it wasn't sadness. It was relief. It was liberation. She had spent so long believing she wasn't enough, that she had failed, that she had deserved to be thrown out. But no, she had always been valuable. She just hadn't been recognized. Until now. 2 days after the conversation with Richard, Ariana was in front of the Harbour Spoon. Her hands were sweating. Her heart was beating fast. Richard had scheduled a meeting with Martha and James. They wanted to speak with her personally. She looked at the diner door, the same door where she had been fired, where she had sat on the sidewalk crying with her sick daughters. She took a deep breath. Richard was next to her, with Lucas holding his hand. You can do this, Richard said softly. Lucas nodded excitedly. Go for it, you're good. Ariana forced a smile and walked in. Martha and James were waiting at a table near the window, the same table where Richard and Lucas had sat with her that day, after the bakery. When they saw Ariana, they both stood up. Martha came forward, extending her hand. Ariana, thank you for coming. Ariana shook her hand, nervous. Hi, James also greeted her, pointing to the chair. Turs, please sit down. Ariana sat down. Richard and Lucas stayed at a table across the room, giving them space but remaining nearby. Martha began, her hands clasped on the table. First, we need to apologize. Ariana blinked. Apologize? For what happened to you? James said. We didn't know what Coleman was doing. He manipulated everything. He used you as a scapegoat while stealing from us and the other employees. Martha shook her head. When we found out, we were shocked and ashamed. You worked hard here, Ariana. You never deserved to be treated like that. Ariana felt her throat tighten. I didn't know he was doing that. No one knew, James said. He was good at hiding it. But now he's been fired. He's being investigated by the police. And we're trying to fix the mess he left. Martha leaned forward, and part of fixing that is bringing you back. Ariana looked at her. Richard told me, but I don't understand. Why manager? James smiled for the first time. Because you held this place together on your own. He's right. Martha completed. We reviewed everything. The shifts you covered, the work you did. You cleaned, organized, helped in the kitchen when needed, solved problems. You did the work of 3 people, and you did it well. You know this restaurant better than anyone, James said. You deserve to lead. Ariana looked at her hands, shaking. But I've never been a manager before. What if I can't handle it? James leaned back in his chair. You already handled it, Ariana. What was missing was the title and the recognition. Martha nodded. We're offering you the general manager position. You'll coordinate shifts, train employees, deal with suppliers, and we'll support you. You won't be alone in this. The salary is fair, James added. You'll earn enough to support yourself with dignity, and the hours will be decent. We know you have 2 small daughters. Ariana felt the tears starting to rise. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Martha smiled gently. We believe in you, and we want to do things the right way this time. Ariana looked at the table where Richard and Lucas were. Lucas nodded enthusiastically, giving a thumbs up. Richard just looked her in the eyes and nodded, firm, confident. She looked back at Martha and James. I accept. Martha smiled widely, relieved. Wonderful. You start next Monday. We'll show you everything. Explain the processes. It's going to work, Ariana. You'll see. James extended his hand across the table. Welcome back. The right way. Ariana shook his hand, tears now falling. Thank you. Thank you truly. When they left the diner, Lucas ran ahead, skipping. You did it! You're a manager now! Ariana laughed through her tears. I did. Lucas stopped and turned to her. I'm proud of you. She knelt down and hugged the boy. Thank you, Lucas, for everything. Richard approached, his hands in his pockets. You deserve this. We believe in you. Ariana stood up, looking at him. I never would have made it without you two, never. Richard shook his head. You always had this within you. We just gave you room to breathe. They walked back to the car in silence. But inside Ariana, something had changed. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, recognized, valued. She had spent years believing she wasn't good enough, that she deserved nothing more than to survive. But now she was a manager. She would lead people. She would make decisions. She would have a salary that allowed her to raise her daughters with dignity. She no longer had to rely solely on herself, carrying everything on her shoulders. She had support. She had people who believed in her. She had a real chance. That night, after the twins fell asleep, Ariana sat on the guest room bed. She looked around. That room that had been a temporary refuge now felt like more than that. It felt like home. She thought about everything that had happened in the past few weeks. The cruel firing, the despair, the cold sidewalk, the eviction notice, and then Richard and Lucas appearing like guardian angels, the welcoming home, the new cribs, the food always available, the affection, the support, and now this, a chance to start over, truly, not just to survive, but to live. She looked at the twins sleeping, Luna with her arm thrown out of the crib, Hazel hugging the teddy bear. "So we're going to be okay," Ariana whispered, for real this time. And for the first time, she didn't just hope it was true. She knew it was. Because now she had control over her own life. She was no longer a hostage to circumstances. She was no longer tossed around without a choice. She had a real job, a title, responsibility, respect. She had a family, even if it wasn't in the traditional sense. She had support, she had a roof, she had security, and most importantly, she had hope. Ariana lay down on the bed, looking at the ceiling, and for the first time in years, she genuinely smiled. A smile that came from within, that came from the certainty that the worst was behind her. That came from the feeling of being finally in control, and that was freedom. 3 months had passed since Ariana started as manager at the Harbour Spoon. She woke up early every day, dressed the twins with care, worked all day coordinating the diner, solving problems, and returned to Richard's house at the end of the afternoon. The salary arrived every month. Punctually, sufficient. For the first time in her life, she could save money. In the beginning, it was just a few bills. Then it increased. She kept it in an envelope in the drawer, counting it every week, doing mental calculations, rent, deposit, basic furniture, the girls' expenses. It was enough. For the first time in her life, it was enough. It was a Saturday morning when she shared the news. Richard was in the kitchen preparing coffee. The warm smell filled the whole house. Lucas was drawing at the table with crayons, his tongue sticking out in concentration. The twins were playing on the living room rug with colorful blocks, laughing loudly when they knocked down the towers they built. Ariana walked into the kitchen, nervous, holding a folded paper in her hand. "Richard, I need to talk to you." He turned immediately, his expression concerned. "Has something happened?" "It's nothing bad." She took a deep breath, gathering courage. I managed to rent an apartment." Silence fell heavy in the kitchen. Lucas lifted his head from the table, his eyes wide. "You're leaving?" "Not leaving forever, Lucas," Ariana said quickly, seeing his sad face. Just It's time for me to have my own space. You've already done so much for me. I can't stay here forever taking up space." Richard slowly turned off the stove and dried his hands on the dishcloth. "But you can stay as long as you need to, you know that. This house is yours too." "I know, and I am so grateful for everything." She looked at the floor, emotional. "You literally saved my life, but I need to do this. I need to have my own place, so the girls can grow up knowing their mother managed to get back on her feet, so I can feel complete again, independent." She raised her eyes, looking at him. "You gave me enough strength to walk on my own 2 feet again, and now I need to take this step. I need to prove to myself that I can." Richard understood perfectly. He always understood. He nodded slowly. "When are you moving?" "Next week, if everything goes well. If you can help with the move." Lucas jumped out of his chair, his face lighting up again. "We'll help, of course we'll help. We'll carry everything." Richard smiled softly. "We will help. Absolutely. You won't do this alone." The new apartment was in a quiet neighborhood, 20 minutes from the diner by bus. It was small, but clean and well-maintained. A 3-story building painted light beige, with a small blue front door and a little flower box with colorful flowers. Ariana lived on the 2nd floor. 2 small bedrooms, a living room that opened into the kitchen, an open-plan kitchen with a 4-burner stove and a refrigerator that worked perfectly. A bathroom with a shower that didn't leak. Large windows with white bars that let the sun in. The walls were white, clean, with no mold stains. The wooden floor was intact, with no loose boards, no dark stains. When Ariana first walked in with the keys in her hand, she stopped in the middle of the completely empty living room. The apartment was empty but clean. The smell of fresh paint was still in the air. Sunlight streamed strongly through the windows, illuminating everything. She slowly walked around, touching the smooth walls, looking at every corner. It was small, simple, modest, nothing luxurious. But it was hers, earned with her own hard work, with her own sweat. She sat down on the floor right there, cross-legged, leaned her back against the white wall and cried. But this time it was pure, crystalline joy. On moving day, Richard rented a small van. Ariana didn't have much yet. Some clothes of hers and the twins, toys they had been given, the cribs Richard had bought months ago, an old small table she had managed to keep, some pots and plates. "Take the cribs," Richard said when she tried to refuse, thinking he would need them. "The girls are used to them now, and I bought them specifically for them." "But Richard," "No buts. Take them. I won't use them for anything else anyway." She nodded, her eyes welling up with gratitude. They moved everything in 2 easy trips. Lucas helped in his own way, carrying pillows, light toys, bags with the twins, tiny clothes. He made an overly exaggerated face of effort, groaning loudly as if he were carrying a 100-pound stone just to make the twins laugh. And it worked perfectly. Luna and Hazel laughed every time, clapping their hands and shouting "Ukas, Ukas" excitedly. When they finished setting up the basic furniture and arranging the cribs in the babies' small room, Lucas took out a folder he had secretly brought in his backpack. "Wait, there's one very important thing left." He carefully pulled several drawings out of it, drawings he had secretly made over the past few weeks without telling anyone. A huge yellow sun with a gigantic smile, 2 blonde babies holding hands surrounded by colorful flowers, a brown dog running happily in a green field, a large and vibrant rainbow over a house with smoke coming out of the chimney. He started taping the drawings to the wall of the twins' room, making sure to keep everything well aligned and at the right height. "Done," he said, stepping back proudly to admire his work. "So now it's truly perfect." Ariana looked at the colorful drawings on the white wall, her throat tightening hard. "Lucas, they are beautiful. They are perfect. It's so they remember me when they wake up in the morning," he explained, very serious like an adult. "That way they never forget that I'm their best friend forever." Ariana knelt on the floor and hugged the boy with all her strength. "They will never, ever forget you. You are part of their lives. You are part of my life. Forever, Lucas." Lucas hugged her back, squeezing tightly. "You're part of my life too. You and the babies. You're my family." Richard watched everything from the doorway in absolute silence. but his chest was tight too. The following Monday, Ariana woke up early in the new apartment. She prepared the twins with calm and affection. She dressed them in clean, well-fitting clothes that she had proudly bought with her first salary. She carefully combed their shiny blonde hair, putting in matching, colorful bows. Today was their first day of daycare. The daycare was 10 minutes from the diner by bus, in a very safe neighborhood. It was small but very well maintained. It had a cheerfully painted yellow facade with large drawings of animals on the outer wall. A kind, grey-haired director, trained and loving young caregivers, a small room full of colorful and educational toys, and a small yard with green grass and colorful swings. When Ariana arrived pushing the double stroller with the twins, the director greeted her at the door with a huge, welcoming smile. "Good morning, you must be Ariana, right?" "I am. And these are Luna and Hazel." The director immediately knelt down, getting to the girls' level in the stroller. "How beautiful. Look at those clear blue eyes. We're going to have a lot of fun today, girls." Ariana slowly walked in and looked at everything with great attention. Children of the same age playing happily on the floor with colorful toys. Caregivers sitting with them, singing nursery rhymes with funny gestures. Small tables with healthy snacks already prepared. Soft mats arranged in a corner for nap time. Everything clean, organized, safe. She gently put the twins down on the floor. Luna immediately went to a toy box, curious, picking up a red car. Hazel stayed close to her mother, shyly, holding onto her leg. A young caregiver approached, knelt down, and spoke softly to Hazel, showing her a soft teddy bear. "Look who's here. Teddy wants to be your friend. Do you want to meet him?" Hazel slowly took the teddy bear, and she smiled. The director touched Ariana's shoulder. "They'll be fine. You can go in peace." Ariana looked at her daughters. Luna was already playing with another child. Hazel was hugging the teddy bear, calmer. She slowly walked out, looking back several times. On the sidewalk, she stopped. She leaned against the wall, and she cried. But it wasn't sadness, it was deep relief. For the first time, "They have what they deserve," she whispered. "A real daycare, with trained caregivers, structure, safety, new toys, good food, friends, healthy routine. It was no longer charity, it was the right way." Ariana took a deep breath and went to work. The following month settled into a new, good routine. Ariana woke up early. She prepared the twins with affection. She took them to daycare, stayed for a few minutes watching them adapt, and went to work. At the Harbor Spoon, she coordinated the shifts with firmness but respect. She trained employees patiently. She solved problems. She organized the inventory. The employees genuinely respected her. She was firm but fair. She listened. She helped. Martha and James were impressed. The diner was running better than ever. In the late afternoon, she picked up the twins. The two would come running, excited, talking in their own way, showing drawings, telling her about their day. They returned by bus. Ariana prepared dinner. She bathed the girls, laughing at their antics. She read them stories. She put them to sleep. And then she would sit on the sofa with tea, looking around. That place was hers, earned by her. It wasn't big, but it was clean, safe, welcoming. It was a home. And Richard and Lucas remained present. They visited every weekend. They brought sweets for the twins, toys, little books. Lucas played with them, taught them games, read them stories with funny voices. Richard helped whenever Ariana needed it. A broken faucet, he fixed it. A heavy piece of furniture, he helped. But it was no longer dependency. It was friendship. It was family. 3 months after the move, Ariana hosted a dinner. Nothing elaborate. Simple pasta with sauce, salad, homemade bread. She set the small table, put out colorful plates, napkins, glasses. She lit a small candle in the center. Richard and Lucas arrived in the late afternoon. Lucas ran in, heading to the rug where the twins were playing. "Luna, Hazel, look what I brought." He pulled coloring books and crayons out of his backpack. The twins clapped their hands. "Ukas, Ukas!" Richard slowly walked in, carrying a bag. "I brought dessert, pudding and chocolate cake. I know the girls like them." Ariana smiled. "Thank you, sit down. It will be ready soon." They had dinner together at the small table. They talked about the week, Ariana talked about a new employee she was training. Richard talked about work. Lucas complained about his homework but also mentioned he got a good grade on his test. The twins ate in the stroller, making a mess but happy. After dinner, Lucas sat on the rug with paper and crayons. Luna and Hazel joined him, grabbing the crayons, making scribbles. Lucas drew a house with a stick figure family. "This is you, Ariana, and these are the babies. This is me, and this is my dad." Hazel touched the drawing, giggling. Richard was on the sofa, watching. Lucas laughing with the twins. Ariana finishing the dishes, smiling. He leaned back, peaceful. His heart was at peace. When the twins got sleepy, Ariana picked up both of them. "Bedtime, girls." "Good night, babies," Lucas waved. "Dream of unicorns." The twins waved goodbye, yawning. Ariana went to the small room. She changed their diapers, dressed them in pajamas, and put each one in her crib. Luna yawned. Hazel was already asleep, hugging her teddy bear. Ariana covered both of them, kissed each forehead. She stayed there, watching. Lucas's drawings, the clean small room, the comfortable cribs. "You deserve all this, and so much more," she whispered. She returned to the living room. Richard and Lucas were still there. Ariana stopped in the middle of the room. Her eyes welled up. "I need to say something." They looked at her. "You appeared when I had nothing left, when I thought I had hit rock bottom, when I didn't know how I was going to survive." Her voice trembled. "You gave me a roof, food, security. You gave me hope. You saved my life and the lives of my girls." Tears fell. "I will never be able to repay what you did. Never. But I will be eternally grateful. Forever." Richard stood up, placed his hands on her shoulders. "Ariana, you saved us too." She blinked, confused. "How?" "You brought joy back to my son." He looked at Lucas. "After his mother left, this house became empty, silent, sad. We were just existing." Lucas nodded. "It was boring. Very quiet." Richard continued. "But when you arrived, everything changed. You brought life back. Laughter, noise, love. You reminded me of what's important. It's not work or money. It's taking care of people. It's being present. It's making a difference in someone's life." Ariana covered her face and crying. Lucas hugged her. "We're family. Even living in different houses, we're still family, forever." Ariana hugged the boy. "Yes, we are family. Forever." Richard joined the hug. The three of them stood there, united. When they let go, Ariana smiled through her tears. "A family forever." Richard and Lucas left late. Ariana stood at the door, waving. Lucas waved back. Richard gave a thumbs up. She closed the door and looked around. Small, simple, modest, but it was hers. She had a dignified job, a fair salary, a safe place for her daughters. She had autonomy. She had control over her own life. But most importantly, she had a family, not by blood, not by marriage. A family of the heart, built with kindness, care, and true love. Ariana went to the twins' room. Luna and Hazel slept peacefully, their blonde hair shining, their faces relaxed. She whispered, "We made it, girls, we made it." And it was true. They had made it, with help, with support, with love. But they had made it. Ariana went to her room, lay down on the bed, and for the first time in years she slept in complete peace, without fear of tomorrow, without fear of losing everything, without fear of not being enough. Because now she knew. She had always been enough. She just needed a chance to prove it. And she had found people who believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. She had a family who chose her, and she had chosen them back. A family forever. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.